So then we are back with more understanding from the time of the Second Tabernacle services, where we find in the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Israelic lineage. So then we can understand the time of the end. As per then Yirmiyahu, the 61st chapter, where we read then, the cities laid waste for many centuries. So then, from this viewpoint, Yirmiyahu the prophet, he is speaking from the Holy of Holies. In the spirit, he is giving the understanding of the Holy of Holies, because it relates with the holy cities of the Messiah. So then, these days where we find then the system of the world preparing itself for the autumn feast, because the directives then from Nahashatan during the time of 1,000 years, then it is in the hands of the Creator, because we find then the scripture being absolutely true, implicit, and then we find the events organizing themselves for then the final push. So then, what can we conclude from the area of the instructions, where then Galah or Revelation, you find then every nation of the earth doing trade with China? You have to understand what Daniel the prophet was going through as the politician. He was explaining areas of trade, as he himself was then a politician and also a prophet. He was explaining of the kingdoms that would rule until the closing of the age. However, we find a section of Daniel where then people would go to and fro, indicates 1,000 years of the seat. Then he explains the knowledge would increase. But unfortunately, there is a section of it lacking the relationship of the time of restoration with the nation then in charge of this time, trades-wise, because always Daniel the prophet explained of a kingdom leading the world. So then, as you can read sometimes in the Apocrypha, you find the extra writings of Daniel the prophet. We have to search those very diligently and find extra information. Because then, Yohanan from the Holy of Holies, obviously because he was in the first holy city, and then the Messiah dictated to him what he should write for the other cities that were in sin. So then, basic understanding then is basic understanding. How can we then understand every nation doing trade with China, or with the leadership of this closing of the age? How do you understand? There is only one way for this nation then to do trade with every other nation, and then it's via computer. So then the history of our country few decades ago, very troublesome, and around the world, because there were no directives during the time of 1,000 years. We had found ourselves then concocting theories of what the people thought would be the end of the world. They thought of a Messiah then outside of the Holy of Holies. They were thinking in congregations outside of the tabernacles. They were thinking that someday they would go up to heaven then during this age. Can you imagine? Coming out of this earth, then every person then in the Messiah would be gathered up, and without an understanding of the holy cities. So lots of concocting was then done, and then the nation reacted as such, where then there is this place over there in Ozarks with the 12 gates, as they thought they would be then saved from the end trouble of the time. But it wasn't true what they were thinking. Let's analyze first what Yeshayahu the prophet had stated. He said that it would come a time where the cities of the Messiah, or then your holy cities, would be then rebuilt because they were laid waste for many centuries. 61st chapter of Yeshayahu. So he speaks then of an understanding related with the time of the end, where the restoring, ever since there was a word spoken from the Creator and the first human being. So then how do we translate these from this relationship of the Creator and the first human being until the closing of the age? Understandably, 61st chapter of Yeshayahu explains also even the heathen would understand the organization of the Creator, because they would take care of their flocks and their vineyards. It's not only speaking of the cities themselves returning, but it's speaking of the organizational time of the Creator. So then when we translate these during the time of the restoration, we only started roughly 36 months. In 09 started the time of restoration. So then we are very young yet, understanding the time of restoration. But then we read Gala and we find the third part of the ships and nations doing trade with China. There is only a way of doing it. It's via computer. An absolutely neutral system amongst the nations, and then each nation to his own as individuals, as Daniel the prophet had stated it. Yet they would be doing trade with the time of the end leadership. So then, based upon what our country has done as far as preparing for the future, going to the forest, underground, how would the other side of the world react? Because they understand, in quote, they have an ace card. How do they relate themselves, knowing the report of IMF, understanding that we have 36 months of monetary value yet? How would they react? Since most of the people are caught unawares regarding then the time of the end, it's very simple. There is a second Pearl Harbor coming. Where then in December 7th, 41, then our military over there on the island, they were very oblivious. There was a radar over there on the top of the mountain on the other side, and they were picking up signals, but they thought it was something else. There it is. We have the scripture. It is an absolutely precise radar indicating what's coming, but then our countries are oblivious. But it's coming. And they were informed. There came over there, the radar station on top of the mountain had then phoned and spoke with HQ and indicated there is airplanes coming. There is a system coming. Oh, but then the system, it is from the mainland. It's coming, a group of aircrafts. But then would the aircraft come from the north? So the discrepancy of information then began very early when the situation was becoming detectable. But then it was ignored. And we have indicators already with the Citigroup and Bank of China. There is the mortgage system. The system was purchased. The trade is junky. They understand because it was then the house bust in 2008. But they purchased the system. And the very system related already with the Bank of China and Citigroup. So the scripture radar is already indicating a lot of sections of it where there is a second Pearl Harbor coming. Now, how can he then be prepared? What was the reaction then when the enemy submarine warfare at the ocean became evident in the 40s? They had put a team together of a listening post. They were working 24/7 shifts. They were listening the information via Morse code in the air. Then they had to decipher. They had to work on it day and night until the project was done. What do you think is going to take for us then to avoid this second Pearl Harbor coming? Does it not take a team of computerized people, knowledgeable, understandable of computers, working 24/7 under the military in order to maintain secret the combination of these systems under the government's control, where every financial institution of our country would give their share of understanding of the situation, and then the tax deduction would be monitored by the government. We were lucky back during the time of Pearl Harbor because then the flat tops, they were at sea delivering Marines around. And fuel were then preserved, amazingly. But this time, when the government is caught unawares in the next 36 months without a system, exact system, instant tax deduction, the government won't be able to function. They're going to start taking orders from China because they won't be able to regain control because of the existing monetary system. The only way the nation can come around of the situation is by registering every financial institution and taxing every time there is earning yet during this time where our monetary system is active. When the system comes, the CH1 comes, then there are some adjustments that must be made because the government can get in the system and control it. The government can download the system on their own computers, but there they are regarded as individuals. But they can't change what's there because it's foreign, it's from another country. They have other types of tracking. It does not depend on the country system. It's absolutely independent. And then the relationship of each citizen using financial institutions versus then the CH1 system of China, then it has to be yet stipulated. But at least if we prepare ourselves at the end of the 36 months, then the financial institutions are tracked. So there is truly a second Pearl Harbor coming. But can the government interpret the information coming from the radar? Or is it going to be a replay of Pearl Harbor? Then after 36 months, we had indications of these. We had the mortgage system being purchased. We had then the Bank of China in Citigroup. We had then this hacking situation of China in the system. They're not trying to hack the situation. They're trying to overwhelm the situation. Because when there is the overwhelming of the system, shortly after our government gets rid of it, and they purchase the system. Another system, and another system, and another system, and another system. What do you find? A gathering of systems. But then the understanding of our government, they made a huge place over there in the Ozarks, and they go into a hole. So then, what we should turn around, because we are then cowarding ourselves from what's coming, because we thought it was some religious understanding of the past, and you find out it wasn't. So what can we do? We have then the raw materials, then we put up a team together of computer technicians and get the entire system updated, working day and night under the guideship of the military. Because the development of the system has to be obviously ultra secret. As they do these, the faster they can get this entire system, then as the nation deducts taxes, then they can control the printing of money. So rather than being caught 36 months later as if there was a train with no control, then it can be under the control. Speaking of paper money wise, printing, because there is a compensation coming via instant taxation. So we've got a lot of work to do.